G'day guys, welcome to episode 111 of Life on the Hulls. I'm down in the forward stateroom on the starboard side of my Catamaran putting in some road partitions. So there's lots happened since this episode was filmed. Today I'm going to concentrate in this episode under the floor here. I've got the integrated water tank. I need to put in another access hatch so I can inspect and clean that hatch out. And also I'm going to put in some conduits to act as service passageways here underneath my sole, as well as being able to get services and obviously discharge back to my black water tank. I'm then going to glass this floor down and get it down in this episode too. So plenty to come. Hope you're all well, healthy and safe and staying out of the dreaded virus while we're all in lockdown. I'm only a K away from my house here, so I can pretty much come up here at any time without breaking any restrictions. But don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. Right, so a couple of days spent over there on the port forward cabin. Now there's actually a main bulkhead that goes through the middle here, and that becomes two single beds. So there'll be a single bed on this side, another one on this side, or we can turn those two singles around and form a double or a queen. In fact, it's quite a substantial sized cabin. So now that I've got all of that pretty much squared away, and that glass floor is glassed down, everything's pretty much in on that side, the bulkhead's all tabbed in. Time to turn my attention to this side, the master suite. There's a large floor panel, there's water tanks underneath it. I need to do some completion work on the water tank, because once I do it, I'd actually prefer to put the hatch in it prior to glassing the floor down, unlike what I've done on the other side there where I've actually already glassed it down. But I'm still going to be able to access it through a floor panel, so I should still be able to easily cut a hatch in the floor. But it's time. I've just given it all a really nice vacuum and the whole place is neat. Okay, so in the next period, I think I'm going to be down in this compartment here. So first things first, I need to remove both of the modules and get them right out of the way so that I can start to work on glassing this piece of sole down. Once this sole's down, the bulkhead here and the bulkhead here can go in place, which form the dog leg that actually surrounds the forward head, and that's going to be a little bit of work at tabbing both sides. It's not a huge amount, it's probably not as big as our main bulkhead, but it actually does intersect with it, so I need to make sure that we've got structure, we've got strength, and we've got a really good bond onto both of these. Now that's going to mean that this module for the head that the camera's sitting on, and I'll show you a picture of that now, is going to need some blocking on the other side of the bulkhead to hold that module in place. So very important. It's only going to be a small amount of foam, but that'll take a bit of working out to do, so plenty to do. I'm going to get on with it. And the first thing I need to do pretty much, I've got some locating screws here that are holding these modules in place. I'll remove them and I'm going to lift this module right out. I want it all out of the way, everything out of the picture, and then this module is going to move as well. What I'd like to do is leave this in place, and that'll need to be screwed to the module on the other side of it so that I can get a really fair position as to where this bulkhead sits. I know everything's sitting in place, but it's now a matter of the fine tuning to make sure that it goes in perfectly. So funnily enough, these flanges that are on these modules, I've since worked out have to almost be all but removed. They're simply there as a strengthener for the for releasing it off the mould and actually making sure that I get a good fair shape. But the great thing about them is they protect the module from any damage when I'm moving them around. And obviously when they were building the boat in production, they were lifting them in and out, and obviously this has really saved these modules from any damage. They've got a couple of little marks on them, but nothing major, nothing I can't fix. If I can't do it on my own, I can't do it. It's that simple. All right, that's good. Okay, so we're back to where I was about a year and a half ago. Yeah, pretty much everything now is ready to glass down. The only thing is under this water tank here, I do have to remove this bulkhead to actually get into there, which means I've got to remove the stairs and the freezer and everything else. But down in here where the water tank is, I need to put in a second hatch. Now I was going to do it after I put the floor hatch in, but once I put in an access hatch here, but I think for simplicity's sake, if for nothing else, that I decide on the hatch I'm going to put in, and then I at least drill the hole in the top of the tank. It will save me a lot of grief later on trying to cut it with a jigsaw and a very limited access. This sole can now come out, as you can see here, down here where the head intersects. There's a number of pipes that need to come under here, so there's going to be some conduits and basically some conduiting put in through underneath the floor here, obviously for my pipe work to get up to the head here, which is sitting here in a mess. But yeah, for now, they're out of the way. They're pretty much safe over there, not going to fall down or anything, and I can get on with my job. So I've now decided I'm going to use a small kayak sport hatch, which is nice and simple with a rubber lid on it. So I'll cut them out this afternoon, and then I've got access to both hatches, including I'll make this one center it more so that I've got access to actually fitting into that baffle in there as well. So drastic measures when you cut out a hole in a pre-laminated piece of foam is that you're very, very essential that you core the outside of that hole. Now I always knew I was going to do this, that's why I'm doing it before I put the floor down. So important to do. By coring out the foam in between the two pieces of laminate, it actually enables you to fill it with epoxy and stop any chance of water ingressing. So that's actually what I'm going to do here. I'm going to core out this back to the laminate, fill it with epoxy, and then I'll be able to just simply put the hatch in on the top. Now these hatches, I've actually got, each hatch has 8 stainless steel screws. They're all countersunk, and they've all got a nylock knot on the back of them. So that will be Sikaflex down onto the top of the tank. And then once that's in place, basically I have full access to that tank. I'm going to mount the other one as well prior to putting the floor down. Listen to the wind again, howling 42 degrees in here today, middle of March, coronavirus, self-isolation in the holes. So I've been drilling access holes for the conduit through the top of this water tank, across the top of the bulkhead, across the top of the tank, and I've put in 4 38mm tubes. Now the great thing about that is that's going to take my fresh water, hot water, cold water, and possibly a little bit of electrics through the top of that area, right underneath the floor, underneath the sole. But it dawned on me and just the final realisation before I was about to glass this lid down, that my head, the sanitary hose, is actually a 38mm hose, so it wasn't going to fit inside one of these conduits. So just zipped into town, first day of lockdowns here in New South Wales, and got into the hardware shop before they closed down, and picked up a good sized tube here that's going to have more than enough room for that hose to go through. So I'm going to actually install this conduit in here. I'm going to put 2 of these tubes in so that I can have plenty of access for the sanitary hoses that are going to come out of the head, and ultimately they'll then be glassed in. So good job I didn't glass it down, or I would have been trying to do it retrospectively, and I don't want to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, very important that the foam core is cored and then filled with epoxy, because any sort of water or any moisture may actually get in between the foam and the laminate. Now, probably not as crucial in the conduits here that I'm putting in, but I made sure that they were filled with epoxy as well before inserting the PVC tube that I use for access for my services. I also found by putting some masking tape around the end of the pipes, I was able to circumvent any mess that ensued as I was inserting these things. And the only thing was, the next day when I got there, the epoxy had hardened sufficiently around the masking tape that it was almost impossible to get the masking tape off. I did actually get it off with a Stanley knife. I was able to remove it and then hold it in place with some masking tape, and the job was done up on the forward head as well as on that next bulkhead. So plenty of access there, very, very important. All right, so I've put some packing tape underneath this hole here, and I've cored this hole out so that I'm going to fill this with epoxy. Then I need to paint it with the potable epoxy to ensure that I'm not getting that chemical transference into my drinking water. So this will be filled with thickened epoxy, sanded back, and then painted with the epoxy just to make sure I get the core sealed up. But the packing tape hopefully will stop it. Should do the job, eh, John?
Always will.
Right, so as you can see, I've actually holed and cored each of these with epoxy, and they're now rock solid, those holes. So that foam is now protected from any water ingress, and I can now remove the tape . And now re-drill each one of these holes with the correct size screw bit, drill bit, to make sure that these all fit. So it's a bit of a process, but well worth doing. So because I left this one in as my key, I know that all these holes are in the right position. So we've now ensured that all of these holes are cored properly and protected from any water. So this key is the key to putting this in the same position twice. Always put a little screw or something in it just so you know when you started. I find that 291 is actually one of the better ones for adhesive as well as sealant, so it's very good for hatches. It'll hold them on independent of the screws anyway and provide a very good marine sealant. It's not just a sealant, it's actually an adhesive as well, so very important you don't just use a sealant when you're trying to hold something in place without extra fasteners. But for me, I've got both, so a bit of a trick with these things is to not open them up too much. You don't need a lot of this stuff to hold a hatch down and seal it. Okay, so now I've got my water tank hatch lids screwed down and in place and finalised. I've now got to disassemble this section here so that I can place this sole down onto the floor here. So it's a very exciting day. What this one means is having the starboard sole in place means I can continue on with the starboard bulkhead. Why are my bulkheads in two places? The reason why they're in two pieces is that there's a dog leg in the middle. It's actually a 45-degree angle as it comes across from the centre, back across, and then joins with this one. So it's quite a contorted bulkhead in this particular boat. It's just the way it was designed, and I'm going ahead with it because it allows for a massive stateroom up on the starboard side, which is going to be hopefully mine. All I've got to do basically is undo a couple of screws here, pull out my freezer, pull out this companionway, and just make myself a little bit of room to work. Right, so it's time to put this sole down. I've just made a few measurements on my floor on the top of the sole, just so I know the rough dimensions of the hatch that I want to be cutting in it. And I'll just show you that now. It's basically about 32 centimetres wide, or 320 mil wide, and around 640 long. So it's probably about this large. I want to be able to make sure that I can lift the hatches right out and get right into all the hose fittings and everything. So good access is critical. It's a fairly large hatch, but it is a pretty quintessential one for access to the pumps and all of the lines that I'm going to be running down in here. So essentially, the next process I have to do here, now that I've lifted this this floor section up on its side, is to put packing tape underneath the composite angle, and where that angle comes up like that, I'm going to put packing tape underneath there so that any squeeze out doesn't fall down into my nice clean bilges. I did it on the other side, you remember that back in a couple of episodes ago, but very important that I do that all the way around. I've already sanded and prepped the top surface and the wall surface of the yacht itself, of the hull, and one thing I just remembered, and it's a very easy trap to fall into, is to remove the peel ply off the hull or the underside of the floor sections. Now, someone mentioned in a video a couple of months ago, or when I did the port side floor, do I flow coat the underside of that floor? Now, in this case, I'm not doing it. I've done the bottom of the water tank. I'm actually not going to. It's because it's peel plied. It's already a good, fair, smooth surface. I'm not concerned because it's basically very well laminated and it's not going to see any water. I'm not concerned about that undersurface. It's very common. It has been done with peel ply, so I don't need to put a waxed resin on there to finish it. It's essentially a finished surface in any case. And it just means whenever I feed my hand in underneath, I've got a nice smooth surface where I'm not going to catch any sharps, in particular under a floor if I'm reaching my arms through or whatever. But to actually flow coat the underside, there's going to be a hell of a lot of work really to know a sort of advantage other than to do the actual hull where, you know, material is going to sit, water is going to sit, etc. So, righto. So I've got to remember to put this in. I'm not going to put a hatch in, I'm just going to vacuum it out when I finish doing the final fit out. Right, time to glue it in. I'm going to lift this tank out for a moment, but remind me to put it back in, won't you? Won't you, John?
Of course, Captain.
I had a guy a couple of weeks ago reminded me to put it back in, but I'd already done it 3 months before, so you have to remind me 3 months ahead to put the friggin' tank back in, because I'm sure I will forget. In my bag. Ready to go, buddy. This is it. These are huge moments. John's here to witness the fun. So I'm still piping here. We had to have another brew, didn't we, Johnny?
Not enough.
So I'm just going to go along this flange here just a little bit. Alright. Just don't get on your clothes, mate. There's none anywhere on the wherever you're on. Alright, so we remembered to put the tanks in. Thanks, guys. Okay.
There you go.
That'll work.
As you've got it like that.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah, no.
This one's twice as big.
You've only got to put the edge down there.
I want to set the edge. I want to set the edge on this chine, and then we'll sit it. It's got to go underneath. That bit's got to go underneath
Top
that lip
there.
there. Yep. Oh, there we go. It's a big piece, and it's heavy. Well, it's pretty heavy. I hate it to be plywood.
Okay, maybe it should go on that edge.
You can't. It has to go on your edge.
Watch the camera.
Got that? You got it?
Yep.
Just hold on to it.
Why can't it go on
the
this?
chine? Just sit it on the chine.
On there.
Because you see that edge there? Right, sit it up on the chine all the way along.
Okay, I'm not going to hold that. That's going to slide down.
No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to
Saddle it. You want to saddle
roll
it,
leg
don't you?
over it. And we're going to, you just hold, see that end tab you got there? See the tab you got your hand on?
Yes.
That has to go in first. Alright, get it in there?
Yes.
Right in.
Yes.
And then lay it
And
down.
line your lines up here.
No, it won't matter. Once it goes in, it'll be fine. Just let it drop. Drop it. Drop it all the way down. Push it further. That's it. And then just push it forward. No?
To you.
Yeah, just bump it forward with your leg. Oh, God, that was easy. That was like, Jesus Christ. I've been worried about that all. Hang on. No, it's going to go down. I'm going to screw it all down. It's fine. It's got to screw down up here. Hear that squeaky?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got to get rid of all of that. So
Make them bow. Screw down to that. You don't want to get this level.
it is level. Don't.
Oh, look at
So,
that.
I mean, it's dead reckoned. Absolutely perfect. As close as I can get it. Don't you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when you're standing on it, it's pretty good.
Well, by the time you screw it down, like you said.
Right, so it's dead square. Hey, John? Isn't
Not bad,
Yeah,
mate.
it's absolutely dead square. So the next method, I tried weights on the last one, and I decided that screwing it down was the best way. And then I come back and retrospectively fill all the holes, and that seems to be the best way to go. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to whack a few in here. Well, that's it for another week, guys, and getting these soles glassed down has made a massive difference to the speed with which I can work. Getting the ability to be able to put bulkheads in and getting them tabbed in has given me a massive sense of achievement. It's been such a great period, I have to say, in this build. So as I put things away and get everything square again, to check it before I start tabbing in the bulkheads, I'll bid you farewell and hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining me, and see you later, guys. Thanks, bye.